Hello and welcome to my little tutorial about how to create a stinger or a video transition in Blender. You can use this video transition in OBS or any other software that can actually do something like that. And I will show you two ways, or well, two kinds of stingers. The first one is a simple stinger, and it will look simply like that. You have like, okay, this is like already a little bit fancy, and we will do a simpler version of that. But you can see what's happening is we have like a transition video that plays, and in the background it switches to the scene B in this case, and then it's just going away again. And this is how it works. Scene A, scene B, and the background between this one frame where everything is obscured, the switch is happening. So the other kind of stinger that we have is like a more complex stinger with a mask, and this mask will tell, in this case OBS, where to put which scene and during the transition. I switched now, and as you can see, we have this swipe animation with some stripes in between, and it will easily just blend between these two scenes. And this can be also more complex, more whatever you want. It can be really nice if you really put some effort into it, and it can bring your OBS or your stream or your videos a little bit more to life and bring everything together instead of just like, yeah, cut. I mean, this is nice too sometimes, but honestly, this looks better. So let's get going. So I'm using Blender here, Blender 2.93.5, if you can see, in the corner here. It's a pretty standard setup, maybe some changes from my settings personally, but otherwise it should be pretty vanilla. But what I've already changed is like, here's some stuff that I've activated because I think it's always nice to have it activated. Sometimes I don't want it, then I can deactivate it, but most of the times I want them. But the first thing you have to think about is, what is the resolution you want to work with? Full HD, that's usually the one you want. Maybe you want even 4K, but I don't think so. And sometimes you don't even want that. 720p is more than enough, and then you can, oh, I just got the one wrong. I think this is the right one, yes. This is the right one. Then you want to think about the frames per second. Usually they stream with 30 or 60. Sometimes more, sometimes less, and you have to think about, do you really need that much for the short transition that you'll say, okay, 30 is always enough. Well, I go with 30 for now. And then you have to think about the length. Usually I would say that the stinger should not be longer than 2 seconds. Maybe there are some exceptions, but I would say it's like 1.5 seconds is enough for a stinger. For 13 frames per second, I go with 45 frames. So that is my initial setup. Make sure that you also set your output somewhere. In this case, I don't really care too much, but make sure that you have a nice output. And then let's get started. By the way, this is not a complete beginner's tutorial. Make sure that you should have a basic understanding of Blender, how the objects work, how the different workspaces work, how scenes work, maybe even layer, but this is something we go to a little bit, not too deeply, just a little bit, because layers are important for this. But yeah, have a little bit of understanding, especially from the graphical user interface, or how to move things, how to scale things, how to animate, what are my, what is it called? Well, it's a keyframe. Yeah, keyframes are important. This is something you should know. If you don't know about that, well, take a look at other tutorials first. For example, the Blender Fundamentals. That is really good on Blender cloud.blender.org, or now Blender Studio, I think. Or just like the donut tutorials from Andrew Price, which are also pretty good, or his other tutorials. I don't think he has anything about animation though. So yet, maybe this comes. Not like really, but yeah. But you should find other animation tutorials if you keep looking for them. So let's go. Okay, first of all, I have to say I hate myself in the meantime, because this is like the 5th time, and now I understand why making tutorials is actually not that easy because you often do something stupid. But okay, simple stinker, how to create it. I have to reset my my settings here. So like for the 5th time now, because I'm stupid. And so as you can see, I do mistakes. Everyone does mistakes. They don't show it all the time. And I don't want to bother you with lots of different stuff that I do wrong. So one thing you need to do on the render settings, you need to go to film and enable transparent. This is very important. Also, you can enable these one. Won't be maybe necessary if you want to, but usually it's not necessary. It can give you nicer results or it doesn't. It really depends on what you do. So then let's reset the camera. Alt G to reset the position, Alt R to reset the rotation, G for moving it, and the Z axis for Z, and then moving it up. Nice. Then I bring a new viewport, switch it to with numpad 0 to the active camera, and there you have a nice camera. Then I will just go into edit mode, scale it down on the Z axis and scale it up overall so that it obscures the whole field here. Back into object mode, I bring up my timeline, move it a bit over. With control and middle mouse click, you can, by the way, do this kind of stuff. That is really nice. And I will move it over with GX so that the view is free. That is how you want to start, with a free, unobscured camera pointing in the void, because that will be transparent in our picture. With the cube selected, I do a keyframe for the location. Then I go to the last frame. I move it over with GX. On the other side, I location. And that's our transition. That's all. As you can see here, everything is perfectly obscured. 23, this is the one that we will need to, where the switch will happen in the background, where we will switch from scene A to scene B. But overall, that's it. That's our transition. So, what now? Rendering. Rendering. Okay. What you need to know about rendering, what is really important, you can directly render it into the correct format, but you can also render it into a PNG sequence or OpenXR sequence, whatever. We will just, for this example, we will render it directly into the right format. So you switch over to FFmpeg video here. You go on encoding, you switch over to WebM, and you switch to WebM here. I would suggest going with high quality and slowest. And now it's important that you go here and select RGBA so that you have the alpha, the transparency, still going on. If you wouldn't do that, well, it wouldn't work because the alpha is not there. And then you can simply render it. I will show that to you now. Rendering it. It will just take, because it's Eevee, I have a decent machine, it will just take a couple of seconds and we are done. And now I will set it up in OBS and I will show you the result. And the result here, after setting up everything, is this nice transition. And this was too fast by me, so my fault. Scene B, scene A. You have to give it some moment before you click to the next one, otherwise OBS will cancel it. Because when you are too fast, you can see it will do some strange stuff. And yeah, but this is OBS. That has nothing to do with Blender or our transition. It's just OBS. Yeah, and this is the simple transition that we have created. Well, you can spice it up. For example, we can rotate the camera a little bit, rotating it on the Z-axis, making it a little bit skewed, making sure that 23 is still here. Everything is obscured. Then we can render it again. And ready. I would also suggest when you render it, make sure that at least a couple of frames are unobscured at the beginning and a couple of frames at the end. Doesn't have to be crazy, but just a couple of them will make it easier for loading and unloading and everything. And overall, it makes a better experience for an OBS. So then I can reload it into OBS. And we should see now that it is like slightly tilted. Yep, it is. And I was too fast again. Looks perfect, right? So now is the question, how do you create something like this? Which looks way cooler. Except for, I think there's a little moment here where it doesn't work, but that's okay. So how do you create something like this? I will show you right now. And now let's go about the complex one with a mask. I had to reset everything again because I didn't learn the first time, and I haven't saved the file. So yeah, save your files, guys. Save your files. So let's go again, and this time I will show you how to create the masked stinger. I will just switch it up a little bit for sure. And this is our element that is obscuring everything. So I will create, and this is important because we are going to work with different layers. We have here our our stinger, and we create the stinger layer, which is important. And we just move this to a new collection, which we call stinger. We also, and when we edit, we also add a new one calling mask. And we add a new collection and call it mask. But let's go back to the cube and let's animate the cube again, because again, I'm stupid. Also, if you can use the other scene, but now I'm just using this one. Location, GX, location, location. We have the animation again. I've also put it once too far, but this is not a problem. Yeah. This is our stinger cube, and we now need a mask cube. And the mask, and for that I will just duplicate it, but with Shift D, so not a full copy, just a Shift D copy. And I will go into edit mode. I will just grab these one, and I will just move them by x-axis all the way to the left. I will also grab this one and move it slightly. No, I cannot. I go to the edit mode, I select everything and move it slightly to the left. So this way the animation stays the same, and I don't care if it's overlapping. It's not a problem, because now what we can do is we can select the second cube, bring it over to mask, and in mask we deactivate the stinger, and in stinger we deactivate the mask, so that we only have in our stinger we have our element that obscures everything, and we will make that a little bit nicer because I want to. So I give it a bevel with a few more things here, with a few more segments. Maybe not that much. Yeah, that's okay. That's something. It doesn't have to be too complex. And then I switch over to the mask, and as you can see, we just have a mask object that comes in, and this will be black, and the other part will be white. And to set this up, I will go to the shading. No, go back. I will also add a plane. I move this plane below and will scale it up. And this is our black part of the scene, because it's also transparent. That I didn't have changed yet, so I will do, because it's important. The shading, get a new shader, emission to 0, give it some black and put it in. So now we have a nice, completely black, do nothing shader. Yeah. And here we have a white. I will just delete that. I will also use emission and will give it an emission of 1 that should be fine. Now, to bring them together, we have to render two different pieces. We have to render the stinger itself, and we have to render the mask, also the stinger and the mask. How to do that? Well, the easiest way I have found, well, I tried with compositing and all that, but didn't really work for me. So the easiest way I found is I duplicate the scene, or well, I say not duplicate, I copy the settings of the scene. I don't use anything here. I go to compositing, use nodes, and I say use the stinger and use the mask. And this will now just render the mask. Important here is change the color management to standard. Yeah, medium contrast is okay, but I have always a little bit medium high contrast or high contrast, but medium contrast is okay, it doesn't care. Important is that you choose standard. In Filmic, you will get some strange errors like half transparent stuff, because Filmic will change the colors, and the highest color might not be really a white, a pure white, and OBS will try to, yeah, to show both things. Won't be nice. So make sure that you have here sRGB. And you can also edit this to stinger mask, so that you know what it actually is. And the other one you can, if you want, you can also use the compositing and just make sure that it's to stinger and not to mask. This way you're set. And then we need a third scene, and this is our combined scene. So you can just say copy settings. You call it stinger combine, and you switch up the resolution by ×2, because you have to put two scenes right next to each other. And instead of doing anything here, I go to the video editing part. Is there also like a, I think there's also color management. It's also Filmic. Yeah, I don't like Filmic. In this case, go to standard as well. And in this scene, and then Shift A, add your stinger. And you should see your stinger. Not really that impressive, right? Bring it over to where it starts. In this case, I think it's minus 1280 divided by 2. And then we should have right place. 640. Then we add the mask and bring it also over to start with 1. And as you can see, this is like, this doesn't have a transparency. It has a nice line here, but it doesn't have a transparency. So on here we want 640. And that's it. But as you can see now, this is not visible because we are here in cross mode. You want the upper one to be in alpha over mode, and now you have both at the same time. See? That's nice. And because I'm just fancy, I want to give this a own. This has also a material now. No, I don't want it. I wanted to have a new material. I wanted to have a principled BSDF, and I want to give it metallic look, less roughness. And yeah, that's it. Just to have something nicer going on. Go back to the combine, video editing, and you are good to go. And that should render nicely. I will try it out and will show you the result in a second. Give me a moment. Well, not in a second. well, not in a second, but here I am again, because I forgot something. You also have, because we just changed this stinger thing to have the correct output. I think, no, not even that, because I've started anew. You have here to set up the same as before. So make sure that you have transparency on, which should be the default, I think, for this kind of thing. Then make sure to use FFmpeg. You make sure that you switch over to WebM using the WebM RGBA, use high quality, use slowest, and then you are good to go. Render your animation. As you can see, the animation render looks a little bit strange because you have like double the size, and well, but it will render just fine. There are probably some more stuff that you can change here, but that I'm not really aware of, but yeah, that's okay. And at some point you're finished. And bam, right? Okay, and there we have it. And then I go to my nice little OBS stuff, and I will change it, what you can't see. I will change it, and then we should be able to see a nice scene swipe. This was already my fault because I did it too fast. And this is what we just rendered. Isn't that nice? Yeah. Except for when I just press too fast. Isn't that nice? Love it. By the way, setting this up is quite easy. I will show it to you here. In OBS, you want to create a new transition. This is my German OBS, so don't be confused. And you just grab the video file. You would say here you have a point where it will switch, and you just stay to the middle where you want. This is in the simple stinger. Yeah, this is also called simple stinger now, but this is just me. You need here to put in the right frame. You can also take, I think, not the frame, you can also say like the time, but yeah, here you can say time, but I would suggest frame because you oftentimes know the frame better than the time. And here you just say like use this mask. I don't know the German, the English word for that. I think it's something with masks like here. And it's the same file. Stinger left side, mask right side. You can also say stinger on top, mask on the bottom. But we have just created this here. Mask doesn't need to be inverted. Then you have like this monitoring, this where the audio should switch over to the scene, and that's it. And then you can also see here in the test, in the preview, how it works. Looks pretty nice, right? And that's it. That is how you create a stinger or a complex stinger with mask in Blender and how you can use it. Hope you had some fun. Hope you learned something, and maybe see you next time. Maybe. Not sure. Have fun.